So being unique versus being just like everyone else is an interesting paradox worthy of great attention and contemplation. This is something that designer Iris Apfel has had the better part of a century on this earth to contemplate. Ironically, in some people's quest to appear unique, this very impulse to distinguish themselves from others is not a unique or original sentiment at all. It's really quite like everyone else to think in this way, to think that you're a unique person, right? Having said that, it's very much true that it can be incredibly boring to dress like everyone else, to look like everyone else, right? Everyone wants to distinguish themselves in some way. At least most people do. Some people don't care, right? But a lot of us want to distinguish ourselves in some way. Now, people are both unique and similar to everyone, all at the same time, really, right? The key difference to understand is to know in which specific aspects you are unique and in which specific aspects you are like everyone else. Certain similarities are obvious and unavoidable, while other similarities can be very painful if we fail to grow spiritually into our gifts by actualizing our higher self. While your individual fashion choices may offer some baby steps into this realm of thinking differently, adding accessories and jewelry to your wardrobe really isn't going to change your thinking in the same way that, say, Master Yoda extols the virtues of unlearning, for example, right? So in some ways, the belief that one is hindered by the chains of thought and language put upon us and programmed into us is itself a belief that imprisons our thinking. Remember, at the beginning of this this part, I was talking about our thinking really isn't our own. It's kind of laid down in tracks. It's established in patterns before our parents' parents are born, right? This idea seems to be very useful for the victim mentality, which decides that there is nothing that can be done to break out of the prison of the mind, so why waste time and effort even trying, right? This is a valid critique, or this is a valid question worth exploring, because I know some of you might be thinking about this. You might be asking, well, what's the point in anything if we've already been mostly unconsciously programmed from the thousands of years of human history, right? While I would disagree with the victim mindset, the spells of word magic are equally a blessing and a curse depending upon a particular intention and perspective. It really is just a matter of changing your perspective. Change your worldview and the entire landscape shifts right before your eyes, right? It's not so much that it's a tragedy that the conventions of human thought, language, understanding, really just thought and language, have been pre-established, and there's really very limited amount of travel for us in that realm. But your own individual understanding, right? That's how you break this chain, right? Of this belief, or this, you have this notion that you are your thoughts. Well, you're not, right? You can prove this to yourself with doing some intentional exercises like I mentioned before. You can begin to prove this to yourself that you're not. So then what, right? Now, there's always outside forces at play here, right? And we cannot help but have our worldview affected by these outside forces. Today, more than ever, people are competing for your attention, right? And they're all proclaiming that their own worldview that's what's happening. This is what you need to listen to, right? This is the truth here, right? Suspending belief and keeping aware of the subtle and not so subtle influences that are trying to affect your worldview or belief system, that's a great start. Being guarded about that, right? This is what I talked about in the previous part of this series. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to believe or that you should see the world like I do, right? It's not what this is about. The seeker's path is mostly a solo journey, after all. Speaking from my own experience, the less I believe, the more peace of mind I have experienced. So maybe that'll work for you, or maybe it won't. I'm trying not to cling to the belief that it should or will work for you, but I got to be honest that a small part of me at least cannot help thinking that, or at least hope that, right, for you. So Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. This is a prime example of calmness in a sea of chaos, or staying tuned into your authentic higher self regardless of outside circumstances. So you may have all of these competing interests for your attention that are trying to affect your worldview. What do you do, right? How do you counteract this, right? Is there any counteracting this, right? Your state of being comes about through your worldview, essentially. What you believe about yourself, most importantly. This unconscious programming that we talked about before. What you truly believe about yourself. So if you see the world truly as light and love at the unconscious level, then it will become your inner state as well, right? If you access your inner resources in that way, and you rewire the programming of your belief system at the unconscious level, you can start the process consciously, and then that will in turn bring it to the unconscious level. It does take lots of practice, but if you can bring yourself to this state almost all the time, or as at least through the majority of your day, right? Then you'll really see some changes in your life. You'll see some changes in your worldview. You'll see some changes in your perspective. You'll look at the exact same thing you did before with completely fresh eyes, and you won't be thinking of it like you did before. You won't be thinking of some limitation as being a prison, right? But you'll be understanding that limitation was just a belief, nothing more. So abandon your beliefs and expectations, and the background noise will begin to fade. Just cultivate the watcher, right? Cultivate that awareness and just let these things are always going to keep coming and going. The thoughts, there'll always be people around saying this and that. There'll always be influences in the media trying to get your attention. There'll always be electronic forms of entertainment. There'll always be people, maybe friends that are influencing you in this or that way. That'll always be there, right? But you can't change any of that. You're not going to change any of it. So it's futile and pointless to try. You can only change your own inner resources. And if people detect an authentic shift in your inner resources, then guess what? They want to get what you have, right? They see what you have and they want what you have. And then they start asking questions. And then they start getting really interested. Wow, you seem really, you seem really happy. You seem really calm. You're really, it's really cool hanging out with you because you're very chill, or whatever it is, right? They want what you got. And then, right? The student in you becomes the teacher for someone else, right? So if you abandon your beliefs and expectations that everything should just stop and calm down so that you can have some inner calm, right? Again, it's nice to have a calm place, a peaceful place. You need that. And you need to cultivate that, and you need to get that noise out of your life, that external noise. But at some point you have to realize that external noise is going to keep coming in. Doesn't mean you have to seek it out if you don't want it, but at some point when it does occur, you can access your inner resources and realize, oh, well, this is just going to come in and it's going to go away, and it is what it is, right? Water right off a duck's back at that point, right? So if you release the belief and expectations, all that noise outside, it's not like you're escaping it. It's just that you are now beginning to access your inner resources, and you have this, you're cultivating a state of just watchfulness, of awareness, and, oh, okay, look at these people freaking out over here. Well, I don't see a reason to freak out, so I'm gonna just gonna observe, right? So all that's left when you release all that expectation is your spirit, your Shiva or your Christ consciousness. This sense of really you can create within yourself what you want. That's the magic part of it, right? That's the amazing part of it, is you can create this state of, because that's the only place where you can create what you want as far as a place of calm on a permanent level, if that's what you desire, if that's what you want, is within yourself. You can create that, and you can take that with you wherever you go. So you don't have to be in this space where I'm dreading going to this place or that place, or this person's the worst, right? Then you don't have an expectation that it's going to be a terrible situation. You don't have a belief anymore, right? You just enter the situation and observe, and okay, this person is always very difficult or whatever, but I'm sorry that they're going through that, right? Things start to shift with you, right? So the deep connection within your own divinity, right? That's what we're talking about. This is the teaching of Christ, essentially, right? Look at all these people around Christ here in the Last Supper, and they are all over the place, right? Because he's just announced to his apostles that someone has betrayed me, right? And they're all going crazy. And you've got this, and the one who's really going to bear the harshest consequences is Jesus himself. And he knows it, and yet he's still calm, right? And of course, he's depicted right in the center of the painting, which is symbolic of balance. He's right in the middle of this doorway here, and you have this light coming in, right? We could spend an entire hour just looking at the symbolism of this painting, right? So why should a being who has realized their God essence be bothered with these petty agitations of the world, right? Once you reach a certain point of your own inner resources, right, you might conclude, or you might at least understand, that all of these agitations are just temporary. They come in, they go out. They're just like the thoughts that walk into the front door and, hey, blah, blah, blah. They tell you this and this and that, and you just go, okay. And then they leave. And then another one comes in, hey, man, oh, man, it's just I got to tell you something really sad. And then they leave, right? But these are just thoughts. These aren't things that have happened in reality necessarily. A lot of times we get wound up in our thoughts. And there are things that might happen, probably won't happen, but we feel them just the same, right? It's kind of ridiculous. So even when Jesus announces his betrayal and subsequent demise, he remains calm while everyone around him is fretting, right? This way of looking at the world isn't to be confused with escapism or pacifism or giving up. This isn't some kind of, Jesus hasn't taken a bunch of lithium. He's not on Xanax, right? This isn't a strategy for tuning out. This is a strategy for tuning in, okay? Now look at Jesus. He knows there is no escape. He's just being realistic, right? He knows and he accepts this fact as a divine being, and his face and posture reflect this understanding, right? He is the locus of great turmoil and upset, and yet it is all those around him who are affected, okay? However, you may choose any state you wish in your mind and body at any given time. This, don't confuse accessing your internal resources with, don't expect that this is going to make you calmer, right? Because if you're holding on to an expectation at any time, then you're missing it. You're missing the point, because the watcher within yourself is not one that holds on to expectations. Right? It's not one that judges, and it doesn't hold on to belief, and it doesn't hold on to expectation. So if you're coming into this going, well, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to do all these things to explore and cultivate the watcher and watch my thoughts and write these things down, and if you're going into it with an expectation, you've already lost. Right? You have to just go into it with intent, with a beginner's mind. Go into this practice and try to release any expectation and belief. And even trying, it's kind of a catch-22, because even trying to release the expectation means you're expecting to release the expectation, right? So that's another dimension of this, right, that you have to be aware of, right? You don't want to be it's like signing up for something, expecting something amazing to happen, and then when you don't get it, then you just kind of fall back on it. You just kind of, or I should say you have a falling out with it. And then you just drift off into some other random direction in your life, right? So expectation and belief, these are the things to let your inner resources, let your watcher observe these things as well. And it's, a great way to do this is to observe the expectations of others, and then be honest with yourself and match some of your expectations to theirs, and think about, gosh, there's plenty of times where I have those expectations just like this person. But start seeing those expectations in others, and then they'll start coming up in yourself, and you'll start observing, going, oh, that's an expectation. Just identify, right? Don't judge, right? Just identify what this is. Oh, this is a thought. Oh, this is a expectation. Oh, this is a belief, right? Just start there, being aware of these things that are coming up within you, right? And this isn't about just sitting on a pillow and being the calmest person ever, right? Being the calm in the storm. That's not what this is about. We do want calm. I think most of us need calm. It helps us with our health. It helps us think clearer. It helps us relax, and it just makes us happy and makes those around us more relaxed and happy, right? But you may find it quite appropriate and enjoyable to experience a good bout of agitation now and again. I know I do. I definitely do. I'm not going to be one of these pseudo-spiritual New Age types that never gets upset or never gets excited about something. And when I say excited, I mean maybe in a more negative sense. So don't have that expectation, because when negative emotions come up within you, just go with them, experience them. Don't try to block them out, right? That's part of the human experience. So don't try to deny what comes up in you in the moment, right? So that is the end of part 20. We're coming up on the end of this series. I think there is 2 more parts. And then after that, I have a nice, I have another video game series. So if you check my About channel, or my About page on my YouTube channel, you'll find that. And of course, I should say, if you're enjoying this series, definitely please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a like. And I'll see you guys next week for part 21.